In this video, I will demonstrate how DCR leverages the latest research in process discovery in order to recommend relations to the process modeler. The DCR process methodology consists of three major steps. First, we identify roles and activities. Secondly, we outline example scenarios, both required and forbidden, as example of what must be supported and what should not be possible. Finally, we add rules based on the four DCR relations. In DCR graphs, we can express rules using four different types of relations between activities. The condition milestone relation could read, before you can pay out, the manager must approve, and approval cannot be pending. The response relation or the follow-up action, when manager approves, the money must be paid out. The exclude relation, if executive management can remove the need for manager to approve. And finally, the include relations, auditors can re-include the need for the manager to approve. We believe we can get business people to understand and use four relations. Compare this with the more than 100 different symbols found in traditional BPMN diagrams. Let us assume we have a process description that reads as follows. When an employee fills out an expense report, the money must be paid out. After filling out the expense report, the manager must approve the expense report. Once the manager approves, the money can be paid out by finance. If the manager rejects the expense report, he must later approve the expense report in order for payout to happen. Using Highlighter app demonstrated before, we have highlighted roles in the text as well as activities. As we've seen before, when we click the activity, it is marked here in the DCR designer on the right. We've also defined a set of scenarios found in the simulation history. We've defined 5 scenarios. The scenarios are the happy path, which is the obvious part where the employee fills out the expense report, manager approved, and finally finance pay out the money. We also have a scenario where the manager changes his mind, first rejects and then later approves, so money can be paid out. We have an example where the manager rejects, leading to the employee changing their expense report, which is later approved and then paid out. We also have this funny scenario where the manager changes his mind 4 times. And finally, we have a forbidden scenario where payout happens without approval. We have seen the model and we've seen the scenarios defined. Now we should move to the third step, identify roles. And we will use the app model recommendation that leverages process discovery technology in order to analyze the scenarios and find rules for step number 3. Coming back in the graph, I'll make it big. And we'll notice under app that we now have a new application called model recommendation. We click on the application and we see that it finds 3 required scenarios and 1 neutral scenarios. We then click model recommendation, which basically analyzes the scenarios in order to come up with relations for the graph. We notice that it suggests 3 conditions, 3 responses, and 1 exclude relation. The 3 conditions goes from the fill out expense report to the other relations. It seems quite reasonable that you must fill out the expense report before you can do anything else. We can mark this as prerequisite to do anything. So we must give an explanation. The 2 next thing is that when the employee fills out the expense report, the money must be paid out. Employee must get his money. The second one must approve. So when approval happens, once approval is done, payout can happen. The reject the expense report if manager rejects, He must later approve. That's what it means. The final relation is an exclude relation, which is basically mapped to payout can only happen once. We then click Add Relations. We notice that the 7 relations are added, and if we click a relation, we click at this one, we can see that the description that we added before is added here. We can now check our scenarios again, and we can see that they are all possible. The reason we can do payout without approval is that we are missing the relation and then add. We are missing the condition as well as the milestone. Once we add these, we check again. We check that everything works as it should. We've used the DCR process methodology. We first identified roles and activities using the Highlighter app. This step is normally quite easy, and even if done in a large group of domain experts, this step is usually something everybody agrees on. Secondly, we identified a set of scenarios. With a group of domain experts, we would encourage each of them to provide their own scenarios in order to get a better understanding of the diversity of how the process is handled, but also in order to get more scenarios that will enable us to analyze data better in the process discovery algorithm found in model recommendation. Thirdly, we have seen how the app model recommendation use process discovery technology in order to find relations. The relation seems quite reasonable, and we should provide a good explanation of each role. Thank you for listening. Learn more about DCR graphs from these links. Thank you.